Time had turned into a bitter battleground, where each day was filled with fear and sacrifice. Amidst all this chaos, the curious mind of the scientist sensed a thread of connection embodied in the essences of the horsemen. Daniel Harris theorized that all four horsemen were interconnected, like a wheel set in motion. According to his theory, the vicious cycle began with the plague. Its poisonous breath and brown eyes penetrated people's souls, sowing disease and death in its wake. By destroying lives, the plague influenced the appearance of the next sibling. Then war, the embodiment of destruction and bloodshed, fueled violence and conflicts, which, in turn, led to the further spread of disease and death. This vicious cycle had a devastating impact on society, leading to escalating chaos. But Daniel did not stop there. He continued his research, and within his deep perceptions, another link began to emerge. Famine, all-consuming and debilitating, was the next link in this chain. Hunger intensified due to wars and diseases, devouring all living beings in its insatiable thirst. It ripped the last remnants of hope from people's hearts and led to the disappearance of food and resources. Finally, the vicious cycle reached its culmination, death. Cold and relentless, it collected the souls of the deceased, guiding them to the realm beyond. Its presence was heightened by diseases, violence, and famine, becoming the ultimate point of destruction. This discovery shrouded his thoughts with a grim veil, but within knowledge lay the key to victory. Each morning, the heroes faced the looming threat and cursed the fate that had thrust such a role upon them. But in their hearts burned a flame of hope. Knowing that even in the darkest night, light remained somewhere nearby, they embarked on the path to the coveted temple, through disease, destruction, and death. The tangled thickets of dark forests led the heroes to an ancient temple, where an object containing the power of the plague was kept. Their journey was treacherous, for the thorny forest paths were cursed and filled with malevolence. Dense branches of trees, twisted and bristling with thorns, like guardian serpents, attempted to hinder the heroes, tearing their clothes and scratching their flesh. With each step, the earth beneath their feet pulsed with sinister energies, accompanied by eerie rustlings and muffled moans, as if the very forest resisted their intrusion. The lost souls of the damned wandered among the trees, their piercing cries disrupting the silence, invoking bloody rituals and eternal torment. Despite their souls being filled with fear and anxiety, the friends continued their journey, not yielding to the obstacles in their path. They knew that their mission was of utmost importance, and upon their shoulders rested the fate of the world. Unseen forces of evil observed them, attempting to undermine their resolve, but the heroes pressed forward, suppressing their fear and relying on mutual support. Finally, when they reached the granite walls of the temple, their eyes beheld a forgotten ruin shrouded in darkness and mystery. Old columns, warped and covered in dust, seemed like ancient beings brought to life, summoned to block the path of the heroes. The steps, shattered by time, creaked beneath their feet, as if warning of impending doom. The entrance to the temple was adorned with stone carvings depicting torment and suffering. These sculptures, crafted by masters millennia ago, transported the heroes into the abyss of horror and despair. Within the temple, an atmosphere of emptiness and dead silence enveloped them. Light penetrated only through cracks in the cracked windows, creating gloomy beams that seemed to embitter everything within. Dusty rays illuminated statues of gods, once revered here, now covered in ash and oblivion. Stepping onto the altar, our heroes found an amulet emanating the mighty power of the plague. They gazed upon it, realizing its full danger and destructive force. A gloomy aura seemed to swirl around them, reflecting their own fears and doubts. But as they approached the amulet just a few steps closer, a spectacle unfolded before their eyes, unbefitting of this world. The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, transcending human comprehension, stood before them. Their figures reflected the flickering of light and shadow. Pestilence, war, famine, and death, they were embodiments of universal chaos, entities that had broken free from worlds shrouded in darkness and madness. Friends tightened their grip on their weapons, preparing for a brutal confrontation, but Pestilence simply smirked and waved a hand in their direction. This gesture quickly extinguished the feeble mortal's desire to contend with the horsemen, inducing uncontrollable weakness and nausea. However, instead of the immediate death that the heroes expected in response to their audacity, the horsemen paused and with a piercing voice filled with unimaginable weight, began their message. Their words penetrated the depths of the soul, evoking confusion and trepidation. Pestilence raised his distorted head and spoke first. His voice was tender yet all-encompassing, like thousands of serpentine whispers penetrating the very essence of existence, and his words were slow and menacing, echoing from the depths of the abyss. Who told you that we, the horsemen, are the source of evil and your woes? You feeble creatures are incapable of grasping the truth about your own destructive nature, his ominous voice resounded. Do we create new strains of viruses, deadlier with each iteration? Or perhaps we pour poison into your veins, poisoning you to the core? His words pierced the hearts of the heroes, revealing to them the truth they had tried to avoid seeing. Pestilence continued his dreadful sermon, as if unveiling the secrets of forgotten realms and unfathomable wisdom. And I remain merely an executor of your own sinful work, he thundered. Your greed, your corruption, your insatiable thirst for power and control, all of this begets disease and death. I merely bring you the reflection of your own decaying souls. The heroes, stunned by this revelation, couldn't believe that the source of evil resided within humanity itself. They had sown the seeds of destruction, and now they were reaping its fruits. Vaccines, intended to heal, had become weapons, poisoning the unsuspecting and trusting people. Pestilence persistently continued his speech, describing in detail the consequences brought forth by these counterfeit remedies. He pointed out the distortion of reason and intellect, the pernicious influence they had on bodies and souls, transforming people into puppets of their own fears and illusions. Then, War stepped forward to speak. His voice boomed like thunder and the howling wind before an approaching storm. His words reverberated with a spine-chilling resonance in the ears of the heroes, as if ancient ruins being shattered in the midst of collision. His speech was filled with rage and maniacal energy, permeating the air and penetrating the hearts of all who listened. You, mortals, with aspirations for power, distort the very essence of life. Your vices, your lust for power and control, ignite the flames of destructive wars. You become puppets of your own passions and illusions, and your destiny is intertwined with ruin and bloodshed. His speech unveiled the accursed truth about human nature, the lust for power and the thirst for dominance that turned people into inhuman killers and transformed the world into an arena of death and destruction. War depicted countless conflicts, battles, and wars that had torn the earth apart for centuries, the bloody trails they left on the fates and souls of people. Your hands are stained with blood, and your hearts are filled with rage, the horsemen thundered. You not only shatter bones and sow death, but you also break destinies and shatter hopes. You accuse me of turning your wars into a whirlwind of merciless chaos, devoid of mercy or compassion, while I merely observe your unjustifiable atrocities. His words resonated in the minds of the heroes, penetrating deep into their souls. War unveiled himself, revealing the grim truth that their resistance and struggle only served as additional fuel for their madness. Famine, with his hungry eyes and emaciated body, spoke next. In a soft, yet piercing whisper, his voice reached the depths of their souls, invoking terror and despair. Famine, this merciless tormentor, leads to inequality and injustice in the distribution of resources, famine uttered with contempt. The world suffers from senseless abundance, where some revel in luxury while others, poor and depleted, starve without a crumb of bread. Heartless opulence feasts, unaware of what more to indulge in, while the destitute wither away, dying from lack. His words reverberated as a somber echo in the void, creating a sense of alienation and desperation. He described the cruel injustice that turned people into doomed, starving specters, plagued by hunger and despair. Famine revealed to the heroes the true nature of this world, where inequality and greed tear hearts apart and shatter hopes for a better life. The horseman's words seeped into the hearts of the heroes, leaving traces of doubt and bitterness. They realized that hunger was not merely a physical state, but also a metaphor for injustice and deprivation that permeated society. The heroes felt the oppressive weight of injustice and resolved that they must confront this force to restore hope and justice in this distorted world. And finally, Death, with his cold and merciless voice, began his gloomy chant. His words echoed like an abyss, inviting each person to their final journey. He spoke of the madness that engulfs the mind in the face of death, the power to take away everything one has ever had, and how he welcomes every soul into his cold embrace. Death is the only inevitable journey that humans must undertake, Death pronounced, his voice piercing the air like icy wind. You aspire to power, wealth, and immortality, yet all of these are possessed only by time, and when it expires, you are doomed to my eternal darkness. These words made the heroes feel their insignificance and the transient nature of their existence. Your own actions lead you to the edge of the abyss, the horseman continued, his voice growing colder. You create your own miseries, plunging into the madness of your own deeds. And now you stand before me, mere insignificant beings ready to vanish into the darkness of my eternity. The horseman's speech plunged the heroes into a state of humility, an understanding of their own vulnerability in the face of inevitable death. It pointed out that humans themselves are the architects of their own calamities, sinking into the madness of their own actions. The heroes realized that they were faced with the challenge of accepting their fate and finding meaning in this dark and merciless reality. Shaken by this grim sermon, the friends understood that they must confront not the horsemen, but their own vices, in order to break the cycle of destruction. They had to find strength and wisdom within their hearts to resist the temptations and bring light and justice to this cruel world. Listening to these haunting words, the travelers realized that their task had become even more daunting. They felt the weight of the universal burden resting upon the horsemen's shoulders. But they did not succumb to this abyssal terror. They delved into the darkest depths of themselves, drawing strength from their profound fears.